Hey guys, I'm Paul,
I'm Sharon. I'm one of the mentors in All In.
and today I'll be reacting to some TikTok videos of people reading their college essay and giving some college essay tips. Alright, so we have someone reading their college essay, and let's take a look.
Okay, this is the SpongeBob essay that got me into USC and UCLA.
Wow, she got into USC and UCLA. Those are incredibly competitive schools, so, congrats.
If I had to estimate, I'd say I've watched every episode of SpongeBob SquarePants at least 8 times. I've watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie more than 100 times.
Wow.
I speak candidly when I say SpongeBob is my hero. Hearing chuckles and seeing contorted faces when I declare this is inevitable. But nonetheless, I say it with the utmost candor and confidence every time. And why shouldn't I? I've devoted 13 years of my life to the sponge. My earliest memories...
Okay, so the opening honestly is just like really strong. It's very eye-catching, and you just want to know more about this person. She sounds like an interesting character, and she also writes really well. Like you can see from like the command of her like vocabulary that she's using quite advanced diction, and it just sounds very smooth.
Bob are from when I was just 4 years old. Upon arriving home from pre-K, I would run into my apartment and beg my grandma to let me watch SpongeBob instead of her melodramatic Bollywood movies. Of course, she would always cave in.
Okay, so we can see sort of like her relationship with her grandma, and there's an element of humor there, and perhaps sort of like this idea of like not taking herself too seriously, which I think is aligned with the sort of persona that she's trying to build.
Okay, before we move forward, I think some comments from me, definitely she used quite a decorative elements or like vocabs in her earliest paragraphs, which is awesome, but it can come across as intimidating if you're starting out your essay, which is okay. Like you can put all those decorative vocabs like later on. I think what's interesting is that the topic of SpongeBob is very apparent, and if you notice, she mentioned about getting into conversation with her grandma, and her grandma have to let her watch SpongeBob instead of her favorite Bollywood movies. So here and there, she also put some of her background, some of her identity. So just quite nice detail on it. Let's see what's coming next.
And screeched the lyrics of the infectious theme song at the top of my lungs as it poured out of my surround sound system. During these performances, my grandma would massage her temples. Every day, I would learn new vocabulary, new jokes, and new ways to annoy SpongeBob's grumpy neighbor Squidward. It's no secret that the setup of the SpongeBob SquarePants show is bizarre. A sea sponge, a starfish, and an octopus ironically named Squidward are neighbors, a crab has a whale daughter, and the antagonist of the show is an evil genius zooplankton with a computer wife. One could choose to criticize the ridiculousness of the show or simply indulge in the absurdity of it all. I indulged. In one episode, SpongeBob and Squidward drive a rock to deliver pizza to a customer. In another episode, SpongeBob draws a picture of himself that comes to life. There were no rules in the episodes, the opportunities were limitless. It showed me that my imagination could run wild, and more importantly, being able to access my imagination was a meaningful skill.
Okay, so you can sort of see where she's making that bridge between, okay, SpongeBob is awesome with I'm imaginative. And I think like she's doing it very smoothly, and that adds to the effectiveness of this particular essay. Also, another thing that I really like about this is that she's very good at actually casting a different light on a show that's very familiar to many of us. And I think that ability of seeing a particular show or like seeing something that is familiar in a different light and being able to cast it in a way that's refreshing, in a way that's new, that ability to shift one's perspective into something that's unusual actually tells us a lot about who she is and what she's good at. So now I'm like wondering, oh, okay, so how is she gonna showcase like her use of imagination.
Scenarios planted a seed in my brain at a crucial development stage, which in turn made me a more creative person. Being myself has never been an issue for me, but believing in myself was, especially in my first year of high school. I was stuck in a rut. I felt mediocre all the time. Whenever I thought of any scenario, my mind made a list of every little thing that could go wrong, even if it was completely irrational. I thought back to the first episode of SpongeBob.
Okay. So there's that bridging again. There's this shift of tone. So she basically started out very, very upbeat, in a very lighthearted, and there's a good sense of humor to this like confessional, serious, this was something that I struggled with as I was growing up. So this actually tells us a lot about like this particular student and what she was struggling through. Now I'm like, oh, I'm expecting that there's something about the power of imagination and like how SpongeBob sort of like helped her out of this rut. And I think like that's where we'll see the most of her over personal growth.
Okay, it started to get interesting because I think a few sentences before this, she started out to talk about herself. This is what I've been looking for from the beginning of her recitation of her essay, because it can be an essay about SpongeBob, period, which is cool. It sounds cool, but if it's the only thing, the admission officer will not know more about you. They will know more about SpongeBob, which you don't want to have. So once I think she mentioned that, her experience watching SpongeBob in a very early stage, I would say, when she's very young, all those imaginations and all the, as she mentioned, absurdity of the stories let her think that, it's okay to be imaginative and be a little bit absurd in things that you're doing. So that's, I think, if you want to talk about something that you're obsessed about, sometime in the essay, please correlate it back to yourself. I think that's one thing that I like.
SpongeBob, in which a swarm of anchovies came to feast at the Krusty Krab, where SpongeBob was seeking employment as a fry cook. He keeps calm amongst all of the anchovy chaos despite it being his first day, and efficiently serves Krabby Patties. I questioned when I had become so doubtful. If SpongeBob could serve 1,000 anchovies on his first day, I could definitely try to give him his confidence back. SpongeBob has been a driving force in shaping the person I am today in more ways than I thought. It wasn't until I sat down to write this essay that I realized SpongeBob may be responsible for my passion for acting. After all, being an actor requires confidence and imagination, two things of mine that were greatly developed through watching SpongeBob. I look forward to further developing these things throughout college and the rest of my life. In the words of Mr. SquarePants himself, I'm ready. It's so good, I love it.
It is good. It is good. It just like combines like a lot of really good things. I mean, she's talking about SpongeBob, and I think that's helps the reader like want to relate with her, and I think that's a really strong way to try to communicate with your admissions officers, right? And to try to make them fight for you. You gain their sympathy. You make it seem as if they want to champion your cause. They want to support you. And oftentimes, like, that's what it takes. You basically need to get one admissions officer to say, oh, I want to fight for this kid. And that's how you get into, those great schools.
So, if you notice, I have a point where it's like I have a light bulb here because, she's applying for acting. I mean, come on, like, that's why exactly I think she brought up this story, is because we're gonna talk about imagination, being able to trust yourself, trust your guts, being free, not afraid of expressing yourself, which I think I would think twice if you want to apply for something more technical. And so if you're applying to majors like architecture or mechanical engineering, I would have like probably a different approach to that. But yeah, I think then the takeaway would be, if you are writing this story, which I assume would be like the common app or personal essay, the writer wants to share her growth in terms of, okay, confidence, imagination, being able to express oneself. So that is the part where she grows, right? And SpongeBob's story is just the casing, like just the vehicle to deliver this message. So I think going back to like one of the most important thing about college essays, especially US essays, I would say, is to show like where is your personal growth, and then match it through the stories that you have. If it's very unique like hers, definitely it's more preferable, but at least you can explicitly say like what you are growing in. So I think what really makes this essay nice and basically compelling, I think, is that because at the end it's not really a story about SpongeBob, but it's also a story about the author growing in her confidence and being imaginative. I think that's the skill that she wants to say here.
Okay, and that's the essay reading. I'm gonna take a look at some essay text.